15% of men have interacted with a virtual partner or AI companion in the last several months. 50% of men endorse red pill material online, and 62% of men in the UK believe that women expect too much in a relationship. But whose fault is it? Let's get into it. My name is Casey, and I've been a therapist for more than a decade, and I have seen firsthand in individual appointments how men are struggling. And if you can endorse anything that looks closer to the truth, capital T truth, to support men and boys, please like, share, and subscribe on the way in. Let's get to what the Times in UK said about why men are struggling and who's to blame. The Times of London said a new study that surveyed 2,000 British men and women aged 18 to 45 revealed that men are at an unprecedented crisis point. They have rejected old ideas about masculinity. They desperately want to care for their community and aspire to be tender, involved fathers. Yet, they despair of being able to fit into a seemingly contradictory demand made of them by their female romantic partners and society at large, with nearly half considering giving up on love entirely. This fits the demographic shift towards men and women remaining single. The proportion of Americans living aged 25 to 34 living without a spouse or partner has doubled in 5 decades to 50% for men and 41% for women. I have a question about this. Where's that 9%? So there's only 41% of women are living single, 50% of men are. That means 9% of women are dating two guys, or 9%, whatever. Either way, the math doesn't math to me. In the UK, the Office of National Statistics predicted a 20% rise in single households in the next 7 years. That's the steepest in the 35 to 44 age bracket. So people in my generation, the millennial generation, who thought, feminist good, masculinity bad, and now we're reaping the results of it. As I read in the beginning, 15% of men are interacting with AI or virtual partners. That, as a therapist or just a man who's concerned for masculinity and manhood, is a deep issue. And I've spent a lot of my career as a therapist who doesn't believe in Sigmund Freud's version of therapy. I've spent a lot of my career trying to develop the skills to help men deal with and beat back internet addiction, because it is a toxic soup that is going to come full boil in the next 10 years. And it's going to be very difficult to get off of an addiction to spicy material online or other things like interactive partners as they become more immersive, more realistic, and even more interactive. That's going to be a gigantic problem that we'll have to deal with as a society. And if there are going to be children that come out of the next generations, we might be super concerned for whether AI is actually stealing your partner.
Where's the spine? Where are the men who will speak when the world spits in the face of our king? They desecrate what's holy. They mock the sacred. Should they not have a look at us and fear?
Reading again from the article, it says, when faced with the idea I would have to change too much about myself, such as my values or behaviors, to make a serious relationship work long term, 44% of men agreed compared to 33% of women. A quarter of men bleakly said that they believed no one would fall in love with them. A serious relationship was too big a financial commitment, said 41% of men, significantly more than women, of course. It comes as no surprise that 15% of men have interacted with their AI virtual partners. 62% said that women have too high of expectations on men, and nearly half of women agreed. Okay, so just to back up this point, I, as a father and as a man in long-term recovery, as a man who attempts to follow the Bible and to read the Bible persistently to teach my children the Word of God, I am stuck in a dichotomy between work and home, being fully available when I'm home, being fully efficacious when I'm at work, being the best possible husband and partner, being responsive to my wife's needs while being responsive to the children's needs, changing diapers, along with fixing things around the home. It is an increasingly untenable situation for men who are trying to be have integrity in their households and have integrity in their relationships. This survey displays perfectly that even 50% of women believe that the expectations are too high on men. And as women begin to outpace us in earnings, that could only probably get worse because women don't like dating men who make less than them. I think that's pretty well established in the research.
Without strength, your goodness is worthless. A man who poses no threat to the enemy is not a virtue to the Lord. He's a liability. And if that stings, good, it should. Do you really think evil backs down just because a man loves God? No, it doesn't back down just because you sing worship songs on Sunday. It laughs at men who talk about love, but lack the guts to defend it.
Now here's where it gets political. 68% of men are afraid that their reputation will be destroyed if they speak their minds. That is fact check true. And it's partly because men and women's political or societal beliefs about what's good, right, true, and beautiful have diverged so greatly that men will be canceled. Men will be recorded at the gym for taking a look, or men will be canceled in workplace situations where the HRification of society has overtaken them. 1 in 4 men in the UK believe no one will fall in love with them. Of course, I already stated that. 57% of men feel pressure to look a certain way and to be successful in the dating world. I can speak as a man who is only 5'8", that short kings have a great problem when it comes to the appearance. Now, I can probably lift some weights, but also it's really difficult to be eligible, especially nowadays when we've given so much of our image of others onto social media, where there are mostly attractive creators making most of the views happen. And so our expectations for what people truly look like is a little bit unrealistic. And as a Midwestern mid man, I can say persistently that someone in my category, especially if I were on my second marriage, God forbid, or anything like that, would have a real struggle when it comes to the appearance. You know, you age, as you have children, your wrinkles start to show more. And if I were a man, I would have to be making insane money to be able to land the type of woman that my wife is if I were dating in the pool now.
Evil thrives where men stay passive. The enemy longs for a faith filled with such men, obedient yet harmless, devoted yet silent. Because without strength, even devotion loses weight.
This is the sad reality in this portion of the survey. They asked the question, do you agree with the statement, no one cares if men are okay these days? 63% of men agreed, compared with 39% of women. After the Me Too movement, men were often nervous about the new norms. I can say, just being a therapist and having a great deal of men coming into my office, trying to be socially and emotionally attuned, along with being well represented in their workplaces and being assertive enough to have their needs met. This is absolutely true, that no one cares how men are doing these days. And a great many of them even have partners who don't care how they're doing these days. And it's gone pendulum swung way too far. When men may have been predominant in their households, they may have been considered the leaders of their households. And when the pendulum of feminism, along with the Me Too movement, began to swing, the social clock moved way too far in the other direction. And now men are the ones who are being, who need like mommy's little helper, just a bottle of laudanum and some other opiate so that they can get through the day-to-day of the expectations that are placed on them, along with no one being concerned whether they're okay or not, and no one listening and no one caring whether men are all right. There have been some mixed signals being socially ingrained into our culture in terms of parenting as well. It says there are mixed signals, and when asked whether being a parent is the most important job in the world, 80% of men agreed, and it was more than women. This is such an unsustainable grenade that we've pulled the pin on, because what did we do to women and to men that men actually believe that it's more, the most important job is to be a parent more so than women? That is so anti-adaptive. It's so anti-evolutionary that men would be the ones who put this as paramount more than women. Reading from the conclusion of the article, Barker says, "It feels to me like a gain in the world that, and the men saying fatherhood is the most important thing in their life, there's a beating heart of men needing to be connected, caring humans." Men need connection. We need encouragement more than anything. And that's probably the reason why I persisted as a therapist above all else, is that I wanted to encourage men, because men get none of that. And it's not our way to ask for it. It's not within even the social learning that we've been given that we would be overtly able to represent our needs verbally and with our partners or spouses and even the community writ large. And it's not because there's so much, just be a man that's placed on us. Nobody says that anymore. It's because nobody gives a hoot whether we're doing okay or not. And if you, along with me and our society at large, can support men and the comeback that they might be on, in the ways that we can begin to let that water run down into a stream that creates beautiful abilities in masculinity to protect and provide, and even provide some assertiveness within society so that our children can be raised better. If any of that rings bells for you, please like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate your support.